We're here with a...
Thoughts about books.
Yeah, we're here with a book tag. I actually don't know the name of this. I have to go, research it because
Thoughts about books.
I apparently didn't capture that and all the stuff I got from the video. But this looks like it was created by Bandy's Books, or at least was shared by Bandy's Books. So that's where I found it. And then I'll try to see if I can track down the title of it so that I actually label it properly when I put this up. But it's essentially like a discussion about books and reading in general rather than name a book that blah. So I thought it would be a little something different, talking about kind of reading in general and our feelings about reading, what we like about books and don't like about books and so on. So the first question is, what is most important to you? Character, plot, or message? And I would say for me, character, message, plot is the order for me. Plot is completely not important to me. I can read a book where literally nothing happens if I really like the character or I like what's being said in the book. I mean, it can't be a great message without a good character, though. The first half of Piranesi, just him walking around and talking about statues and describing the hall was my favorite part of the book.
Mine too, as I've said dozens of times.
Right. And so, I don't need a plot. It doesn't even have to have a message. I just need a good character that I can, be interested in hanging out with. But then I would say, out of plot and message, probably message is second most important because I kind of want, I like a good theme. I like something that has some, social commentary and some impact. But like I said, I don't care at all if there's a plot.
Yeah, I don't care at all if there's a message. If it does, great, that's fine, but I don't care. If your book is just nonsense, it doesn't have any underlying point, that's fine with me.
Yeah.
I care if it's good. So to me, I don't know, plot or character, it's hard for me to pick one because I want both executed well. So if it is a story I don't care about, then the characters had better be pretty damn compelling. If it's a great plot, I would also need... So I guess maybe plot gets a very slight edge for me, but really, if they don't both have something, it's hard for me to really like a book that much. To me, if you execute a book well, you're going to have both are going to be good. So write a good book.
I don't care if anything happens, as long as the characters are interesting. All right. The next one is, should you read books that include perspectives and opinions that you disagree with? And so, this is kind of a tough one because, it depends what the opinion is. Yes, you should expose yourself to different perspectives and different lived experiences. But, reading something from somebody who has different political views or just looks at the world a little differently, yeah, I think that's important. If it's here's a story from the Nazis' perspective on why they were good, no, we don't need that. I don't need to read that. That's not going to change my mind. So it's kind of, I'm assuming they mean should you explore things that you think maybe you would disagree with conceptually? And again, yes, I think it's always good to hear other points of view on things that are not more cut and dry, don't kill people.
Yeah, obviously if you just read the same stuff that you already thought, then you're never going to think anything about what you already think, and you're not going to be able to consider and grow as a person. So yes, you should of course be open to reading thoughts of people that you don't agree with. Now again, there is sort of Gord says, the caveat that thing of what's fun? Setting babies on fire. Here's a how-to guide. That might be funny.
Actually, Modest Proposal is great.
Yeah, that's eating babies. You're not being wasteful. I'm fine with eating babies and using their skin for leather. There's no problem with that. But I'm saying just needlessly setting them on fire. Think of the noise. Think of the smell. It's just wasteful. So there's no point in doing that. But eating them, sure. But yeah, if you're not open to new ideas, then what are you even doing with your brain?
Right. Next one is, what is the role of books as technology advances? And I think as much as people are kind of oh, we're not going to need books anymore. And even Bill Gates, who's a super avid reader, was books are kind of dying out and everybody will be on ebooks. Nope, here we are. People are still reading books. People still have physical books. People still go in the library. And I just don't, it's kind of it'll probably change to some degree, and people, I do think there's more, I think more people actually are reading now, then there was like a lull where people weren't reading, and I think people are cutting back to reading. I do think reading is more of like entertainment for a lot of people, which I'm not saying isn't, it shouldn't be a thing. But I do think that with so many like competing forms of entertainment, more and more people are looking for like fun, quick entertainment out of a book, more than like literary analysis and stuff. But I mean, so you're going to probably see more, I don't know, pop fiction, genre fiction. But that does, I mean, still, like, there's still literary prizes. There's still great literary fiction being published. And so, I don't know. I don't think the role of books is going to change. I mean, the shape of books, the format of books, how we store books, those things could possibly change. But, we're not going to stop reading.
Yeah, going second's not as much fun because you steal like 80% of what I was going to say.
Okay, I'll let you go next first now.
But I work in a school. There's a lot of books. There's going to continue being books. So even when you do like digital stuff, there's still a lot of booketry going on. And like, what is a book? You think, okay, well, it's an ebook, not a book. It still is a book. There's still be written. And even as like physical media, like DVDs and stuff, are becoming less and less and less popular, there's still a ton of books everywhere. So yeah, I think it's still going to be booking around.
Right. And even with physical media, people are still collecting vinyl and DVDs, and people.
But there's less of it.
There are some people who still like that format, no matter what.
What I'm saying is, there's way less of it.
Right? No, I agree, but I
don't think there's less books being made.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and again, even if it's digital first, what's the difference? All right, so you can go first this time. So the question is, how important are summary, reviews, and cover when choosing a book?
I don't want to go first. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so I think summaries are good, because you want to know what the book's about. And one thing that I do that's probably not very fair is if the summary's poorly written, even though the author didn't write the summary, I still will have like a negative view of the book. I'm like, well, this is kind of a sloppy written summary. I'm not going to read this book, which is not necessarily fair. Because again, the publishing house or whatever is the one who hired someone to write the summary. The author's probably like, this sucks. They're probably like, too bad, jerk. That's what you're getting. So that's, a strike against it. Covers, I like covers to an extent. And I've been burnt by a nice-looking cover on more than one occasion. I'm like, wow, what a cool cover. And the book's like a big bag of garbage.
And a cool summary.
Yeah. So I'm like, you got to be careful. Reviews, I don't care that much about reviews. So many people are paid for reviews. And also, my opinion seems to differ widely from so many people that like 80 people in a row will like, this book sucks. I'm like, this book's amazing. Or like everyone and their mom's like, this is the best book that's ever existed. I'm like, this is a steaming pile of horse crap. What is this? So I don't care about reviews really at all.
Yeah, so for me, a couple of things. I mean, kind of touching upon what Sir Chong said, like, as someone who has had my summary and cover, like, that really were not necessarily aligned with what I wanted them to be for my own books, I'm like, please don't judge me on the summary and cover, because, like, that's just marketing. And, I don't love my own book covers, and, like, I don't hate them or anything, but again, like, and I don't have a better solution, because I'm not a graphic designer, I'm not a marketing person, but at the same time, like, yeah, like, I have no say or control. They basically are like, do you like this? And I'm like, well, I don't, okay, yeah, you do. All right, I do. So, but, a summary can help, because again, is it the kind of book I want to read? I mean, so unless I've heard of it some other way, I mean, usually that's going to be something that's going to draw my attention if it sounds appealing to me. Cover, I mean, I think, like, I've definitely been drawn in, we all get sucked in by a really cool cover. And I can definitely get turned off if the cover looks, like, really amateur or just bad, which is probably not fair, but I think that's more often with, like, self-publishing, and I'm kind of like, if you can't put, like, the bare minimum of effort into your, like, cover, I worry about, like, the quality of the writing, which isn't really fair because you're not a designer, you're a writer. But I just feel like, it makes me worried that you probably maybe didn't put any effort into the cover. I mean, it doesn't have to be, like, fancy. It just has to, like, not look like a kid did it in paint or something.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, there's plenty of, like, best-selling books that are basically, like, just big, blocky letters for the title and, like, some orange in the background.
Right.
Like, they're not even doing things with covers anymore for, like, half the books that come out.
Yeah, you don't have to do anything, like, overwhelmingly gorgeous. You just have to, like, not look like, again, that you made it in, like, Microsoft Paint on, like, your phone. And then in terms of reviews, I will say that, like, I don't care at all if you don't like a book. If everyone in the world gives a book 1 star and I want to read it, I'm still reading it. If everyone in the world gives a book a 5 star, I may or may not be more willing to try something that's kind of like, I might read the summary and cover and be like, this doesn't appeal to me, and then all of a sudden everyone likes it. It kind of depends on who that everyone is, just because if it's not my thing, it's not my thing. But sometimes, like, somebody that I, like, tend to agree with a lot of their opinions will like something that doesn't sound like it's up my alley, and I'll read it anyway because of a good review. But that's like, I don't pay attention. Like, when people are like, these are the worst books I read last year, I'm like, I don't care. And I don't even pay attention to those. I don't do those videos. I don't care about those videos. I mean, I'm going to be honest, when I don't like a book, in a recap, and I'm happy when hearing what people think. But, like, if you're like, these are the worst books I've ever read, I'm like, okay, cool. Right?
Speaking of which, here's my list of the worst books I ever read. Oh,
yeah, right.
No,
all right, so your next question that you're starting with, should you ever skim or scan a book?
Skimmers. I mean, I guess if you don't want to read it, I mean, if you're skimming a book, what percentage of it are you getting out of it? You know what I mean? It's like, well, they were describing this dinner, and I didn't care about that dinner, and it's 18 pages, so I kind of glanced at like 6% of it. Well, then you're not reading the book. Like, it's your book. You do whatever the hell you want. If you want to, like, just flip through the pages and be like, hey, I flipped through this 380-page book. I read it in 2.5 minutes. Isn't that great? I absorbed less than 1% of it. Look, it's your book. Do whatever the hell you want. I just think that you didn't read the book, though.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, it kind of depends on what your reason is. Like, I mean, there are times where, like, if it's like, here's a manual of something for, like, a course you're taking, and, like, you don't necessarily, and you just need, like, key content, then fine. Maybe you're skimming because you're like, I don't need to take in every detail of this book.
I assume they're talking about reading for recreation.
Well, no, I think, and again, but, like, for recreation, I have done this, but usually it's because I really don't like to DNF things, but there are times where I'm, like, 30-40% of the way through the book, and I'm like, I hate every second of this book, and I don't like anything about it. I don't like the characters. I don't like the writing. Sometimes I'll keep going and I'll just read fully, but sometimes I'm like, I just need to know what happens in this book. And then I will, like, read. I definitely read fast, or I'm just kind of, like, breezing right over it. Because I'm like, I just don't care, but I can't not know the ending of things. So I don't do it very often, but, like, I'm way more likely to skim or scan than to DNF. Because if I really just don't like something, because I at least want to, like, because sometimes I've, done that, and then, like, 10% later, I'm into it, and then I go back and, like, reread it, because I'm like, oh, wait, this took a turn that suddenly is like, actually, I do like this book. So I kind of have a tendency to want to at least see if I do like it. But, all right, so the next question is, for you, should reading always be enjoyable?
No, you should generally put a clothespin on your nipple whenever you're reading to give yourself some pain. Self-flagellation is also encouraged. I mean, no, you can certainly read to learn. That happens. And sometimes reading to learn is enjoyable, and sometimes it's not. And sometimes you need to read to inform yourself, and that's not always enjoyable as well. And also, sometimes I read just for the sheer pain of it. Like, I'll read a book, and just out of, like, spite, I'll finish it even though I know I hate it. Or sometimes Coleridge Girl will give me a list of books to read as a challenge, and even though I hate them, I keep reading them anyway. So there's plenty of reasons to not enjoy reading, although it certainly is nice when you enjoy reading.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to say, because, like, there are books you read, obviously, there are books you read for informative purposes, and there are books that, like, are kind of a slog and kind of a pain, but you actually want to read. Like, there are certain classics that I've read that I would not say I've enjoyed reading, but I'm glad I read them. And also, there are books, I like a lot of really dark, depressing fiction, and so the word enjoyable is like, I mean, am I getting pleasure out of the process of reading? Yes. But again, am I enjoying myself? No, it's horrible and depressing, but I like that. So that's kind of like a thing I do like.
You are enjoying it.
I guess.
The pain and the depression.
Right. Okay, I'm going to switch to go first now. So, is it important to be well read? I'm going to say I can't say it's important, but I'm going to judge you. Like, I'm not going to pretend I'm not going to judge you. I think that, like, when people say to me, oh, I don't read, I, like, automatically I'm just kind of like, oh, okay, good for you. So, I mean, I think that, yes, you should try to be well-read. I think you should read across genres. I think you should read from different eras. I think you should read different perspectives. I mean, I don't, is it important? For me personally, yes. And I just think it makes you a more, like, empathetic and more, like, it gives you experiences that you can't live every experience. You can't live in every time period. So the more, like, you're exposed to different concepts and different styles and different life experiences and different genres, yeah, the better your, like, perspective on life is going to be. Your more empathy you're going to have. But I guess I can't say that, like, you can't survive in life without being well read. I'm just going to judge you really harshly.
I mean, not everyone has time to read. Sometimes you're going to have a couple brewski beers in your Mojo Dojo Casa house, and you don't have a lot of time to be reading books. Books be wordy, you know? So, look, it's a good way to learn and become well-rounded, and like this person was saying, sort of get a sense of experiences you're not likely to encounter. Like, I'm probably not going to be involved in a murder mystery in a Victorian house in the 1800s. You never know. So this is a good way to experience that and get other people's perspective. I mean, one of the things I do in my job is try to encourage people to read. So obviously I think reading is important. But again, it's not like you can't be a good, well-rounded, successful person without reading. I just think it makes it easier.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, like, the most successful, like, by, social standards, like, the richest, most powerful business people in the world, the majority of them are very avid readers. A lot of, like, politicians are, even if you don't like them. I mean, just look at them. I mean, like, Obama still makes, like, a yearly reading list, if you don't like Obama, fine, whatever. But the point is, like, a lot of influential people are readers for a reason, whether you like them or not, So the next question is, what's your book buying process? I'll let you go first, because yours is probably very simple.
My book buy... I have so many books that I own right now that I don't really buy books very often. I just walk into my book emporium, and I stagger around until I find a couple things I want to read, and I go, this one. And I have enough books to do that for several years. Now, occasionally, I'll know of a book that's coming out that I really want to read, and I'll probably just buy it over the interwebs. Or I'll be like, oh man, I really want to read this classic that I had forgotten about, and I don't have it, and I'll dig it up on Kindle or something like that. The days of me wandering around a bookstore looking for books, which is a thing I used to enjoy doing, I haven't done that in a long time, just because I have too many books.
Yeah, so my book buying process is...
buy every book you see.
If there's a specific book, I will go on Amazon or something like he said, and I'll just get it for either Kindle or just buy it. If I am set loose in a bookstore, on a book show, on, like... I have a thing for book shows on whatnot.
This is Coleridge Girl in a bookstore. You know how, like, you put, like, think of a shopping cart from a grocery store next to a shelf, and she just runs and sticks her arm into the shelf, and just, like, knocks all the books down into the cart as she's running. You see that kind of image? That's her in a bookstore. Blah, 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 blah. You have that book 8 times. Now I have it 9 times. Just utter nonsense.
Yeah, I can't go into bookstores. The reason we don't go to bookstores anymore...
Twitchy. She starts rubbing her nose.
Yeah, the reason we don't go to bookstores is because I have never been able to go into a bookstore and pick out the one book I'm there for, or even if I have, like, a gift card of, like, $25. I have never been able to walk out of a bookstore without spending at least $100. I have a problem. I can't help it. I try, and then he's usually there going, "You can't even carry the books anymore." And I'm like, "Go back to the front and get me one of those, like, baskets."
At some point, I'm like, "No, I'm not going to carry any of these. I'll just encourage you to get more."
Right.
Every time we've gone to a library, she's like, "Wait, what's the maximum you can take out?" Every single time.
It's why, like, the first thing I do before I even go to the library.
It's 18. Well, I have 39.
No, I've never reached my max of books taken out of the library. That's because the max though is like 60 books or something. And even I can't, like, I know I can't read that in like 2 weeks. But I'm usually like, I'll go to the library and I'll be like, I'm going to get 2 books because I have 2 weeks.
2 dozen books.
And then all of a sudden I'm walking out and he's like, "You can't read those in 2 weeks. You have 26 books." Like, you physically...
And she'll have reading like 3.
I know. And then they sit in the back of the car and like forget to get returned for like a month.
And then we owe the library 11 cents.
Which is why I use like Libby now. But yeah, my book buying process is all.
Yeah, she sees a book, she'll try to buy it.
So, which
like
is why
if she's out and she sees someone like in a coffee shop reading a book, she'll offer them money for the book they're currently reading.
I just can't help it. I love them. I love them so much. So what is your reading process? I guess you can go first.
Well, what I like to do is I like to look at the words in order and then go from there. What do you mean reading process?
I knew he was going to come up with some nonsense.
What kind of like hipster garbage question is this?
So
I get a book and then I read it. I don't understand. I don't get this question.
I mean, I think like I'm kind of the same way, but like I'm a very like focused reader. Like I like if possible. I don't always have the time, but I like if possible to like set aside like hours to sit with the book. But obviously life gets in the way.
And call it name. You haven't read it yet. Just sit with it for hours talking.
But like I am very, and it's weird because I do have ADHD, but I have like, I also can like hyper focus, which is part of, ADHD. And I am hyper focused when I'm reading. Like I am like all in. I'm reading every word. I'm like analyzing every word.
You're skimming and scanning.
Right. Well, like again, I admit when I'm doing that though, but like I can't do anything else. Like I don't understand. Like he can like have the TV on. No, I need to be like alone quietly in a room with the book.
Yeah, I like to have secondary noise. Sometimes I'll read 2 or 3 books at the same time.
Oh, yeah, I can't even read more than one book at the same time unless it's like nonfiction and fiction.
Yeah, I don't mind reading multiple books at the same time. That's fine.
It's so difficult. All right, so I guess that's it. I don't know what they mean by that, but like, yeah, I think I'm like a very like focused reader. Like I have one book, I'm reading it. Sometimes I can do like right now I'm reading a nonfiction and a fiction, but
I'm reading 2 fiction books.
Yeah, I don't know how. All right, how do you use what you read? I mean, I guess it depends. Like, if it's just something I read for fun, like a really fun thriller, I use it by going, hey, this book is fun, someone should read it. If it's nonfiction, I kind of do the same thing, but then I just, like, regale Sir Chonk about, like, everything I've learned about, like, this topic, and he's like, I don't care about people climbing this mountain because you read about it for, like, 400 pages about a mountain. I'm like, let me tell you all about this mountain.
Is it the Free Solo Mountain?
No, I haven't read that.
Okay.
But I don't know. And like, I guess like I do recall a lot of things from reading. Like, I feel like in conversations, like years later, I'll be like, oh, that's like in this book, or that's like when I read this, And so I don't know. I guess I use it in communicating with humans.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Sometimes
I'll
use it as fuel for my flame breath.
Also for your job.
Also for my job, I use a lot of books to communicate and discuss and hopefully inspire intellectual discourse and writing and such in books. I also like to make random, completely out of nowhere, bizarre references that no one will get just to be a jerk. And so I do that too. That's fun.
All right, so the next question is, if you could download a book directly to your brain, would you still read? I'm going to answer this one first. And so my answer is yes. Although I would take advantage of that because there are books that like I want to read, but I don't necessarily want to read, like those 100 books you have to read. They're the greatest books of all time, but I'm not like super interested in a lot of them because like the ones I haven't read, I'm like, there's a reason I haven't gotten to them yet. And I'm like, maybe, and then I could, like, decide if I actually wanted to go back and read it, because now it would be in my brain, so I'd know the story, and I'd be like, is this something I'm interested in? And especially with, like, a lot of nonfiction. Like, there's so much nonfiction I want to read. There are good nonfiction writers, but, like, when it comes to, like, textbooks and stuff, like, how great would that be? In school, if you could just, like, download the book you had to read for school, and then you can go off and read the things you wanted to read.
I feel like that's cheating. I wouldn't do it.
God.
And also, like, I've seen enough people talk about viruses from downloads. The last thing I need is a virus in my skull. I'm not downloading anything into my brain. Plus, yeah, I like to me, if it didn't suck at least a little bit of pain, then, like, you didn't earn it. So if I'm like, oh, yeah, I could in 2 seconds absorb gravity's rainbow. No, I want to put myself through the agony of reading it.
Yeah, I don't think I would do it with, like, classics. I would just do it with, like...
Anyway, no downloading into the brain for me.
All right, so what are your views on rereading books? You can start.
Okay, so I reread a lot of books for work, and I find it, with some of them I like to do it because you notice things you don't notice. But outside of like when I sort of have to read them, I almost never reread things. There'll be some like short things, like some goofy like choose your own adventure books I've reread a few times. There's a couple of books that I really like that I've reread here and there for no reason, but it's really rare. I would much rather read something I haven't read than a book I already have read.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. Like, I'll reread something if I haven't read it in a long time, or like if like somebody is reading it in like a group read or something, and sometimes I haven't read it. With Harry Potter, I reread them before each movie, just because I wanted to like, get everything in my head from the books as well as the movies. But like, I just don't have time. Like, so I wish I could reread. I mentioned this a few times. I wish I could reread books that I didn't like, because I always think like there's definitely ones out there that I didn't like that if I went back to in a different headspace, I feel like I might enjoy, but I just don't have the time. And I mean, I can't say that because I definitely have reread books I've liked. But I mean, realistically, rereads are probably like, at best, maybe 2 or 3 a year in like a good year of rereading. I just don't reread that much. I want to, like, there's so many books I need to read first.
Yeah, there's too much going on. I don't have time to reread stuff. So, for example, in a fictional world where Winds of Winter comes out, I'm not going to reread the first 5 books. You might, right? Village Girl might.
I probably will. Although it's not coming out, and I've given up.
No, I know, it's not going to. But I'm saying, like, let's just pretend in the fictional universe it was going to come out. Like, I would just read it. I'm not going to, like, go back and reread the other stuff. That's ridiculous. But you're probably like, well, it's only 6,000 pages. I'll just reread this.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to, but, like, yeah, if they give us enough notice, I mean, I guess I could. But I'm not going to do it now, because if it ever comes out, it's going to be 26 years.
You're going to read it, and you're going to finish rereading them, and then 17 years from now,
right?
Like, well, I died, so I didn't.
Yeah, if he was like, oh, it's definitely next year, and I actually believed him, maybe I would. But like, I'm not going to, because
in about 3 months, we're going to get an announcement that says we don't know when it's coming out, but we know it's not coming out.
I think we just have to accept it's not coming out. Even I've given up.
Yeah.
All right. So the next one, and this is going to be, definitely we're going to have different answers for this. So what makes a book good? You can go first.
Books are good when they have words that is good.
Really?
No, I think, I don't know. There's a lot of different things that make books good. You connect to it. You really like the setting. You like the characters. There's all kinds of reasons a person might like a book. To me, if you don't have competent and clear, engaging writing, it's really hard to have a good book. It's not impossible, right? You might be kind of clunky and kind of sloppy, but like really understand plot and character, and like so that could make your book good. But the core for me is you've got to be a skillful and competent writer who can produce complexities in a clear way.
Yeah, it's hard because, like he said, there's so many different variables, and like, I can read like a book that I think is good, and it's just like a crap, like, fun thriller that like isn't really that well written, isn't even that well structured. It's just a lot of fun to read. I can also read like literary classics and just be like, wow, this is just beautifully written, even if I don't care at all about the plot. Or I can read a book that just has like a massive impact on me because it's like very parallel to my own life. So in terms of like what makes it good, that can vary. I think for a book to be really, really great, for me, it like has to hit a couple things. Like, I'd like it to be well written, but like there are definitely exceptions to that. It doesn't have to be like beautifully written. It just has to be like he said, competently written. And then I need a character that is just like really strong. I have a really strong connection to. And then in terms of like plot and like theme, I mean, it can either have like a theme that I just really connect to, or it can have a plot that just like kicks me in the ass. And that can be either emotionally, it can be like a mystery that just has me go, oh, that was great. And it doesn't mean I don't get it. I don't figure it out, but it has to just be, it could be really well like crafted. So it's like just a couple different things. Like, I can read a really crappy written, cheesy horror novel and enjoy it, like just like a bad horror movie, and I can have a lot of fun with it. And then I can also read like, some kind of beautiful literary classic and enjoy that, even if like the plot doesn't appeal to me. So it's so variable, and like that's part of why like sometimes I'm like, I think a lot of it comes down to your mood in that exact moment. But I think when something really stands out, it's just going to stand out regardless. And then, your favorite question, what makes a book bad? And since you think everything's bad, why don't you tell us?
I don't think everything's bad. I think a lot of things are bad. Bad, for me, is like, one, just lazy, sloppy, redundant writing, right? Just people who don't understand the basics of writing, who, like, can't write clearly, and who just use the same phrasing over and over again, and a million freaking adverbs, and, like, too many stacked adjectives, right? Or, like, their characters are inconsistent or just stupid and annoying, or, like, your plot seems like it's going one way, and it's not like a twist, it's just like an accidental screw up where you kind of go somewhere else because you have so many plot holes, you don't know what you're doing. So, yeah, there's tons of reasons a book can suck. To me, the thing that makes me most annoyed is just really terrible writing, right? So you might have a decent plot. It's a great plot, I can probably get over, but you might have a decent plot, but if your writing is just so bad, like I'm not going to call it a specific book, but there's a book I tried to read, I think last year. I finished the book, but like the guy was trying to describe like a scuffle at a front door, and it was so convoluted and idiotic. It was hard to even understand what the hell he was talking about. Like, if you can't describe anything, don't write a damn book.
Yeah, so, I mean, for me, like, yeah, I think you can make the argument that incompetence in any way can be, like, make a book bad. So whether it's incompetent writing, and that means, like, just really bad. It can be, like, serviceable, but it just can't be, like, do you know how the English language works? Like, it could be something more about, like, structure, like, you know, you have massive plot holes, right? Like, or your characters, like you said, inconsistent. For me, I think the thing that is the worst thing for me in a book, though, that makes me just really not like a book, and I would say most of my, like, what I would consider my 1-star reads, are things that just don't feel authentic. Like, I can tolerate anything if I feel like it's real. Like, but I don't like stories where I'm like, either the person is trying too hard, or they've never actually met the type of person they're describing, like they're writing a book about. Their characters just feel like wish fulfillment, but not like even in a fun way. Like it just to me feels like, have you met a human? Because like a lot of times I'll read books and I just feel like an alien has come from outer space and has been like, describe people. And then that's what I'm getting.
It's like, aren't you a person? Don't you know how people are?
Right.
And I just want to throw in one more side thing. This is not as irksome, but like, given that the internet exists, I hate when people can't do like basic research.
Yeah.
And so they'll make a reference to something or they'll talk about something. And like, yeah, that happens tons of times where I don't catch the error because I don't know about it. But when they are talking about something that I do know about, it really annoys the hell out of me when they're like so completely off base. And like, you could have figured this out in a 5-minute Google search.
Right.
Figure it out. You're writing a book. Do a little bit of research.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily, I'm not going to necessarily hate a book, but that definitely bothers me because I know Sir Tom mentioned like a book Stephen King wrote, and he describes like all the like people from Massachusetts going to Maine to stare at the leaves, and I'm like, we have leaves here. Why would we go there? We do not go to Maine.
Here for that. Just, again, it's a small thing, but it's so frustrating because it's so off from reality.
He should know that.
It pulls me completely out of the book and just makes me angry for like 50 pages.
Right. I read a book last year and I like was so frustrated in the book. And I wouldn't say it was like a bad book. I just didn't really like it. But I spent so much time frustrated because in a throwaway line, they said something about like burning the witches in Salem. And I was just like, literally 3 seconds, you would find out no witch was burned in Salem.
You already know this? Isn't this the thing everybody knows?
Right, but
they didn't burn any witches.
But you know, maybe they aren't well read.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So this is using your reading.
Right. Yeah, that's another thing. I think like when you can tell the person doesn't read,
you're probably not a very good writer.
So don't write if you haven't read. So it's important you're well read if you're a writer. All right. So how do you feel about DNFing a book? What about you?
I mean, I don't know. I don't think I usually make a conscious effort to DNF anything.
Right.
I'm like even saying DNF is like a tool.
How do you feel about not finishing a
book?
book?
So what'll happen sometimes, I'll be reading a book and I don't like it, and I'll gradually, like, my engagement will slow down, and I'll be like, I'll just put it down, and I won't like say I'm not going to read this. I'll be like, I'll be like any other time. I'll get to it later, and I just never get to it,
Right.
Because I just don't give a crap. So like, yeah, that happens. What are you going to do? I don't mark it as read, and I don't review it because I didn't read it.
Right.
If I'm going to mark something as read and review it or give it a rating of any kind, I finished the whole damn book, right? So I don't like when people like DNF a book and go, well, I give it 2 stars. You read 40% of the book. You didn't read the book. Shut the hell up.
Right.
You know what I mean? But yeah, if you don't want to, if you're reading a book that you don't like, then go ahead and stop reading it unless you have to read it. Mm-hmm. Even though I don't usually do that. I usually choke it down even if I hate books.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely done a million, no, probably not a million, but I've definitely have like probably hundreds of books that I've started and are in some state of like incompletion just due to like being due back to the library, life happened, something happened, I got distracted, I wasn't really feeling it at the moment, was like, I'll go back to it. But like those are never like a deliberate choice. Like I really do in my mind intend to get back to them. I just don't know when that will be. And so for those books, I don't mark them as read. Like I'm just like, I'll get back to them someday. I keep them as want to read and, you know, want to read, and because generally by the time I get back to them, I'm going to have to start over anyway. So I would say I have only actively not finished, like in the last year, 2 books. One I read like 70% of, and it was due back to the library, and I just wasn't feeling it. And the other one I read like 30% of, and I was just so frustrated I wanted to like hurt myself because I was so irritated by the book. And so in those cases, like, yeah, but I also, when I finished them, I'm like, DNF, I didn't like this book. I can't do it. And then I don't rate things on Goodreads unless it's a 5 anyway, but like, you know, yeah, I'm just going to be like, I can say like, I didn't finish this book. I didn't like it. So, you know, but yeah, I really hate when people are like, they write this whole review. You can't write a review of 30%. Imagine watching like 2 episodes of a TV show and then writing a review of the show.
Well, speaking of which, I'm going to write my review of Echo.
Right. All right. Should the author's personal life matter at all? I'll let you start.
No, I don't care at all.
Okay. I'm going to say yes and no. So like, no, and I've talked about this before. If you were like, does H.P. Lovecraft, do his personal feelings and like biases affect my reading of his books? No. I mean, I go into it knowing he was kind of a racist and had like his own issues with his own sexuality and stuff. And so like you go into it and you go, okay, that's just how it was. But I mean, it's also a different time, and it's ridiculous for me to judge. I mean, a lot of people were racist, and like, maybe they wouldn't be today when they were more like aware of things. However, if I'm like reading a book now and the author, like, I've read Harry Potter. So like, I've read Harry Potter. I like them. I can't change that I like them. I will keep reading them. I enjoy. Will I read other books by J.K. Rowling? Probably not, because she's kind of like, it's not just that she said like some kind of like suspect things. It's that she really like just doubled down on being like, after people were like, you know, the things you said can be hurtful. And she was just like, I'm going to double down on those hurtful things. And I'm like, really? Like, I just think like listening, especially as an author, and especially when you're writing for young audiences, like maybe like listen to what people are trying to say before just doubling down on it. And so it makes it hard for me. But again, I feel like that's also the author's personal choice. If somebody's like digging into their life, or they're like, oh, this author who's 35 now, when they were 15, they put something up on MySpace and they said this. I don't care what they said 20 years ago. But like, yeah, if you're like currently on social media, be a little careful about what you're saying, I think. You don't care?
I think historical context is important for like certain writers.
Yeah, for the older
like, in
one.
terms of like, am I going to care if I'm reading a book and the book is good? Do I care about the writer? No, I probably don't know about the writer. If I found out well in advance the writer's like a psychopathic piece of garbage, I probably am not reading the book in the first place.
Right, like if all of a sudden they were like, oh, Stephen King murdered 7 people, I might be like, well, maybe I'm not going to give him more money.
It depends on the people. I mean, in his defense, there's plenty of people that...
Right, and like, but again, I think that's just more about like, I don't want to give someone money currently if they're currently being crappy. And I also just think like now people should just be more aware of like, you're on social media, and if you are an author, you should at least be cognizant of it. That doesn't mean you're always going to be aware of your own biases, but when somebody points them out to you, you should be willing to hear them out, I think. More than anything.
Yeah.
All right, so if you could read only one genre for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Probably horror, because that's what I read the most of, but that'd be annoying, because I like to mix things up.
All right, I would say either mystery or, literary fiction.
You love romance.
Okay. Do you ever read a book without knowing anything about it?
Yeah. I don't, it's usually someone has to tell me to read it, or I have to just hear that it's amazing. So that's happened a few times. Like, my favorite book of all time, Watership Down, I thought it was about a submarine, and then I got the book, hearing how good it was, and there's rabbits on the cover. I'm like, what in the hell is this? So I was like, oh, well, here we go. And I thought it was great. You know what I mean? But I was like, it's the watership. It's down. It's a submarine. You know what I mean? And then I just recently read My Sweet Audrina, because Coleridge Girl forced me to read this for a reading challenge. I don't know what the hell this book was going to be about. I just knew it was by V.C. Andrews, so I was like, it's probably going to be shit I don't care about. And it was. But I didn't really know what flavor of poop it was going to be. So yeah, that happened.
And it was bonkers, wasn't it?
It was weird, but not in a very enjoyable way.
Well, anyway, I do because for a couple of reasons. One, yeah, same thing. Somebody will just be talking about a book, and I'll see the cover a lot, and I'll just keep hearing about it. And so sometimes I'll just be like, okay, fine, I'm going to read this book, like Piranesi. And I thought the whole thing was about a fawn. And then all of a sudden he's talking, and I'm like, I think this is a guy. And then he's describing a statue of a fawn. I'm like, oh, I thought this was literally about a fawn. I thought the whole time I was reading, and I was like, why is this fawn walking around describing things? No idea. It's not about a fawn. And then sometimes I also have books that I bought at one point, and I knew what they were about at the time. And then I go to my bookshelf, and I'm like, that's it. I'm going to read something or on my Kindle that's been sitting around for ages. And I'm like, what the hell is this book? And so I might quickly check the summary, and sometimes I'll just be like, nah, whatever. I'm just going to read this because this is what's open. I'm just going to grab this thing and take a shot at it. So, yeah, definitely from time to time. I like to try to at least know something, but sometimes, really good books, you don't know anything. And honestly, sometimes the summaries are so vague that even if you think you know something about it, you read it and you go, this is not at all what I thought I was getting myself into.
There's no way to describe it. Like Infinite Jest, I'm like, I don't know what the hell this is going to be, and nobody else does, even if they read it.
Yeah, that's my feeling with Ian Reid. I read, it said on the back of I'm Thinking of Ending Things, something you'll feel uncomfortable, you'll be scared, and you won't know why. And then literally the summary was 2 sentences, and I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And even throughout the book, I was like, I have no idea what's going on in this book. And it's that's how all of his books are, so I enjoy them. What author, genre, series, or culture can you just not get into, and why? I'm going to take culture off that. I think they mean fandom or something, but I mean, I'm not going to be oh, I don't like your culture. So I'm going to
you suck, Pete, from this region.
Right. I don't even want to say one, even just kidding, because it seems kind of horrible. I'll start with this. So I guess for me, it's not really an author. I tend to give I always feel I'll give authors, unless they do something super appalling, I'll always give authors a couple tries, because maybe that particular book just wasn't their best, or genre, I pretty much, even when I'm I don't like romance, then they'll have an exception to the rule. I would say, though, one of the things I can't seem to get into, what can I not get into? You know what I can't get into is, stuff that's called fantasy, but it's just romance with, a sword. And it's super popular. Now they call it romantasy. I can't get into any of it, because it's crap, because it's just romance with a sword, and 90% of the time, and actually, this is why I don't like romance in general.
You love romance.
A lot of the time, for some reason, apparently people think assholes are hot. And the men are just so disgustingly awful. And they're pretty much borderline rapists and abusers. And I'm supposed to think they're attractive. And I'm just this man is a sociopath. And he should be arrested and in jail. And then they're isn't he swoon-worthy? No, he's a disgusting piece of crap. And he needs to go to jail. So I can't get into that. I can't get into anything where an abusive piece of crap is considered hot.
All right, that's fair. I guess sort of kind of similar. I just don't like any romance in any sort of thing really at all. So if I read a book and romance is the primary...
Isn't Jane Eyre one of your favorite books?
That's more social snark. That's social snark. Give me a
Fine, but
break.
it's still got a huge romance.
Jane Eyre is not a romantic person at all.
Right, but it has a huge romance plot.
Okay, but that's not even the main... That's not why the book is good, though. And also, it doesn't beat its plot down with that crap. She's not like, oh, how will I, find a man? That's not that kind of garbage.
Right, yeah.
So, I don't consider Jane Eyre a romance. It's gothic literary fiction. But anyway, I hate romance generally in all things. So even books that I like, the romantic elements generally annoy me. The best is I'll find every so often I'll be like, okay, this is tolerable. So if the romantic subplot in a book is tolerable, that's as good as you can get for me. If I read a book and I discover it's romance and I was tricked, I usually am in a rage the remainder of the book. I do have to read for part of the Coleridge Challenge. She's forcing me to read a Daniel Steele book, which is going to be romance.
Which is just romance.
Maybe I'll love it.
You won't. You'll hate it.
I suspect I will hate it, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I think, another reason I don't like a lot of romance is, a lot of times, you kind of hit it, is, it's the character's sole purpose in life is to be in a relationship. And I'm like, really? That's it? That's your goal in life? Is, to date someone or
Not that tough. You can probably pull that off.
I mean, and I get it because, as humans, we are, social creatures and we yearn for connection. But I think, I don't mind romance when it's, it's just a natural thing, or, it's just a part of a story and people, connect. I just feel like it should be... I like it when it's generally the whole plot.
Yeah, I can't stand it if it's the whole plot. I would just be
I mean, I have had exceptions to the rule, but it's rare.
I mean, there are books that I like that have significant romance plots, but usually I don't like those parts.
Right. And then the last question is, do you think everyone should read, and why do you think that?
I mean, generally, yes. Reading, makes you a more well-rounded person. It generally makes you... I don't want to come right out and say it makes you smarter, but it gives you opportunities in a lot of ways to grow in intelligence, I'll say.
More open-minded.
More open-minded.
Yeah.
And also just reading in general just helps your brain. It's good for your processes in your mind to read, absorb, and think about what you're reading. So that's all very beneficial. Also, I'm an English teacher, so yeah, obviously I think reading is something everyone should be doing.
Right. I agree. I think, you should read. There's so much scientific evidence that it's good for you, your mental health. It's good for your, communication skills. It's good for, just generally your intellectual capacity. It's good for,
Ginkgo biloba on paper.
Yeah, it's good for empathy. I mean, it's good for all these things. It does a lot of good for you. However, again... Yeah, I think you should read because I will judge you if you don't. And so whenever someone says the phrase, oh, I don't read, they automatically drop significantly in my level of esteem. I just don't get it. I don't understand people who don't read. That's I don't watch TV. I don't watch a lot of TV, or I don't really watch TV much, but and I think sometimes people say it even though that's not true. They probably do read. They probably do watch TV. It's just they maybe read 2 books a year, which is fine. You're still a reader, though. You can't say you don't read if you read a couple books a year, even a book every 3 years. You still read. It's not a priority, but it's kind of to literally just determine I will never look at a book as a form of entertainment or knowledge. To me, is just so ignorant that I don't even know where to start with that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm sure I've offended all of you on booktube.
Yeah, everybody knows booktube's full of people who hate books.
Right.
They put them in tubes.
I mean, how many people on booktube are yeah, reading sucks. So, if you think reading sucks...
Reading's for nerds.
I mean, if you think reading sucks, you're probably on the wrong channel.
Yeah, you probably thought there was this Nooktube, and you're looking for... I don't know.
Anyway.
Schmooktube. Boop.